the button and just leave it on. That way, if you talk, it's.
Thank you, Daddy.
Sorry.
Wait, it's not turning on.
No, it is. It is. The red light's on. You're all set.
Oh, okay.
So, and I think we are, and just leave it on. We are broadcasting now, so.
Don't forget, you don't have to go that far. You could bend it, like mine is to the
Oh, we
side.
can stay farther away from it now?
Yeah, these are a little better.
But it's also good to be bent a little bit so you
Yeah,
talk.
okay. Got
All
it.
set?
Yep.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Today is September 14th. It's 6 PM. In attendance is myself, Mike Ergo, First Selectman, Bob Carlson, Selectman, Nita Kincaid, Selectwoman, Christine Diaz, Admin Finance for the town. We also have our new administrative assistant, Cheryl Lynch, here taking the minutes. And Donnie Hill, Highway Foreman, is in attendance as well. I know we have a couple public that have joined us. Before we get to public comment, I wanted to add an agenda item that I think might help with some of the public comment. So I'd like to look for a motion to add a speed hump update for the village as agenda item 1A. Do I have a motion?
I motion that we do what you just used.
Okay.
Second.
Further discussion on adding that agenda item? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so let me give a quick update because I know that I don't know if there's any public that are interested in it, but I did get an email this weekend with concerns about the speed hump situation. So just to refresh the public's memory, last year, prior to us having a traffic commission, we had decided that we would, after looking at some feedback from folks in the village and hearing that feedback and actually having a multitude of discussions about the village, including a community conversation which took place at the library where we had about, I think, 40 or so members of the public. We decided that we were going to move forward with installation of some speed humps in the village. Of course, last year it was, I think it was a little too late in the game for us to get it done. So we decided we were going to plan to get it done this time of year now. When I spoke with Donnie, who's here tonight, and he can fill in any blanks that I don't fill in, but I want to make sure he was here to answer any questions the selectmen had. He made me aware of a couple of things with the speed humps, and let's just remember, we had to do some research on these. We haven't done speed humps. We did a couple of basic speed bumps on Billings Road. This is a little bit different. These are going to be permanent. They're going to be humps. And to make sure we can conform with the traffic safety standards, there are some things that I don't think the selectman was aware of, nor I don't think the public was aware of, that were going to happen in the village. So I put the brakes on the installation, which was supposed to happen the week after Labor Day. Because I wanted to make sure the selectmen were aware of this. And quite frankly, I'm concerned about some of it, to be honest with you. So a couple of things that are going to happen with these speed humps, it's not just a matter of putting these humps down. They're going to be painted a bright yellow. They're going to be striped with bright yellow. On coming into each side of the speed hump, there needs to be a sign, those types of signs, which means that you're going to add, we had planned for 8 speed humps, I think. So that means 16 more signs are going to go up that are going to say speed hump ahead, along with yellow paint on the road. And then, is there more than that, Donnie? Is it slow also has to be painted, or?
No.
Why don't you come to the mic just so the public can hear? You have to just turn it on, sorry. Just push the button. You'll hear yourself if it's on. You'll hear yourself through the speaker if it's on.
No.
Bueller. Okay.
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
This is new. So I had to research this whole thing. You know, I was out. That was one of the reasons we didn't get them installed. I was out with my knee injury. When I came back, I started researching these speed humps by going to New London, watching the ones down by the train station. And any of you are welcome to do that with those. They do not work down there. I don't know how they work here. But I did research this with talking to New London highway foreman over there in regards to what do they have for problems. They get complaints about people losing parts of their cars going over them. They said they're a nuisance to them. I wrote a letter to you guys explaining that. I also got a book from the National Traffic Safety Board, which requires certain signage to be before the signs, at the sign, every one of these speed humps. So you have to have speed hump ahead within so much distance to the first one, and then speed hump at every sign, every speed hump. So the signs are standard National Traffic Safety Board signs, which are 30 inches by 30 inches, 5-inch lettering, like this one here. See it?
Sideways, yeah.
Okay. So these are the signs that would go up, and it would say blind drive up. I've actually ordered these already because I thought we'd be doing it last week, but it would say speed hump or speed hump ahead.
Is there any other,
Well, a couple other things I learned about this is that the National Traffic Safety Board says that you're not allowed to put speed bumps on a main travel road over 15 miles an hour. So we got to go back and look at some of these other ones that we thought about putting in. The second thing was there's things called speed humps, and then there's a thing called a speed table, which is calculated out for the speed on the road. We're looking at speed humps, which we could put in there. But again, the concern is signage, painting. They have to be painted every year. If signs disappear, we got to do, we put signs up because you have to have them in every single one.
so what I wanted the selectmen to be aware of this. I'm pretty concerned about what people I don't think people know about this, and that we have a balance here. I'm really concerned about the safety of everyone in the village, of course, but we also have the treasure of the village that everyone aesthetically treasures, the way the village looks. I think we have a little bit of a concern here with moving this forward in this way. I wanted to bring it up so we were aware of it, but I also wanted to just throw out another idea, and we'll have public comment, and we're not going to decide anything. We had already made a decision back in November. So if we're going to make a decision, it would be a change of a decision, but I think we need to hear from public first, of course. But one of the other things that I think could be considered, which when we brought this to the Traffic Commission, they were not in favor of doing this. And I told them, listen, you guys weren't formed when we made this decision. So you can give us your advice, but we already made a decision and we appreciate it. Some of their feedback was, and I know that this has been done before, people have said, but have we thrown down a line to actually do a traffic count? Have we done more and more analysis of what's going on? To my first thought when I was thinking, well, what else could we do is, could we reduce the speed limit to 15 miles an hour in the village? I mean, I know people speed anyway, but that's a low speed limit. And maybe that would be something that would slow people down a little bit more instead of this. I don't want to say drastic measure, but this is a pretty big change to how the village is going to be seen as people drive into it. So I don't know if you guys want to have any commentary right now, or if you just want to let the public who's here speak if they have comments or whatever, but I wanted to give that update so people understood why the brakes were put on. And let me just end with, I think it was important that the brakes were put on this, because this is really an important thing. I think if we just put this up without having a little bit more discussion, I think there'd be a lot of people who were maybe a little bit upset about what happened. Because when we first discussed this, we didn't know all these other things that were going to come with these speed humps. I brought up the speed humps initially. I thought the speed humps were a good solution, but I think there's a lot of other factors that have to be kind of discussed and weighed here that we did not talk about previously.
Can I make a suggestion? I would suggest that the other selectmen go take a look at the one at the train station down in London. Look at those speed humps over there. They are not working. I have several videos of those people going over those 45 miles an hour easy.
So Donnie, why wouldn't I go to a historic town and look at speed humps there?
You can, and I would suggest that you maybe talk to the highway department there or the highway foreman and maybe talk to the selectmen and see what kind of liability there is. Because Bob, one of the reasons this took me so long was to try to find a company that was willing to put them in. I went through 5 construction companies, asphalt companies that are state bid companies that all refused to do it because of liability issues.
So when you say liability, if a speed hump's put in and it's been engineered to accept traffic at a certain amount of miles per hour, say 25 miles per hour, and then a vehicle is damaged, and you know for a fact that if he was going over it or she was going over at 25 miles an hour, the vehicle wouldn't be damaged. So you would have to then assume that the vehicle was not traveling the proposed speed. If someone goes over at 40 miles an hour and they damage their car, the speed limit is 25.
I'll let you argue that because people still sue you. And that's just this is a fact of life. I mean, that's what people do. It's just.
So what I'm disappointed on is we're at the 11th hour. We had this issue last year and we had to put it on hold because the plants who make tar, asphalt were closing down. As it gets colder, they close down. We know, I think it's about 6 weeks left. I just feel bad that the people that and now we know in town, there's people that want them, people that don't want them. I've heard from both sides. But the people that want them, mostly people that live in the village who did the survey and overwhelmingly said they wanted these, are now going to be told again that we're going to put them on hold, we'll discuss it more, and then it's going to get too cold, so now we have to wait till next year. Is there a possibility to put in on one road, 2 or 3 of them in where they would have went anyway, with the signage, with the paint, let the village people see how they are, how they work, and decide, you know what, we made a mistake, we're wrong, rip them out, or, you know, we like them, let's put the other 5 in.
We know that we can do things like that if we wanted to, but I'd like to just, Dina, do you have any comments on?
Yes, I do have comments, and I think that doing something like this spoils so much of the town, which I think is what you're noting. It just, I don't know, can we set it up in town and let people look at this?
I don't know if you
Show
can
it to
buy a
them?
temporary
Do
speed
they
hump.
know what it's going to look like with all the houses beautiful and new people coming, and isn't there a better way to do it than this? I think that's not.
Christine has something she'd like to add.
What we could, if we wanted to make it so people kind of could see what it would look like, since
Yes.
Donnie did purchase the signs, we could measure out and spray paint one example on the road with something that's not a permanent, like a pretty temporary kind of spray paint that would wash away, like what you use for like field marking, for like marching band. And measure it out, mark out what it would be on the road, put up a temporary sign, so people could see this is what's going to happen if we do it. It wouldn't have the height of the speed hump, but it would have the same paint. I think you said you have to paint slow on the road approaching.
No, we don't have
We
to
don't
paint
have to do that?
slow. We have to
Okay.
stripe the
Just stripe the,
pump itself in some sort of coloring,
okay.
yellow or white.
So, you know, that is a route that you could potentially go to at least show people what it would look like.
So to just, so you could not put the humps in without something like this.
Not without, the National Traffic Safety Commission says this is the way it's gotta be done.
Are we able to put the, I know you and I talked about putting speed hump ahead, like really in three spots, the main areas coming in. But obviously we do need speed hump signs at each of the speed humps. Can we get away with that?
Yeah, you can put it at the very beginning of the 4 or 8 or whatever you wanted to put in a row.
Okay,
And then it'd have to be speed humps ahead.
speed humps ahead.
And then at every speed hump, you'd have to put a speed hump sign.
That's right. So you're talking about having likely 1, 2, 3, 4 speed humps ahead signs that come in the 4 areas to the village, and then at each sign, at each speed hump, there would be a total of 16 signs because you'd need them at each speed hump.
And I don't know how to gauge the people that lived in the village, what they expected and what they would get. I like the idea Christine had, maybe on a put it out there and then on a Saturday morning, have a village conversation where people can actually show up, look at it, see what and then take the survey, have the people in the village take the survey again. Maybe the 90% that wanted speed humps is now down to 15% because they say, oh my God, I never thought it was going to look like that. But on the same token, they would say, you know what, this is exactly what we thought it was going to look like. We still want them. But I think it's important to listen to the village. The people that live in the village are people that are most concerned. I live on Northwest Corner Road, nowhere near the village. I come here for meetings. I don't have to deal with being hit by a car walking down the street because I'm not walking down Main Street. These people here are the ones that have asked us now for 3 years about speed humps. We've been voted to put them in. I agree with you, Mike, that there may be a difference of opinion on what it was going to look like. But if we can go through some sort of a trial run that doesn't cost the town a ton of money and have people visually see it, even though the hump's not there, but the paint's there and the signage is there, I think that would at least we'd be able to make a better decision.
I think what I think we should consider doing is lowering the speed limit in the village. Like we can do that immediately. We can have the troopers be down there to enforce that for a period of time.
Yes.
And we could see if that makes a change in habits. And I'm sorry that wasn't something that was brought up before, but we didn't have a traffic commission before, and not one of us is a police officer. So,
I will tell you, and this is a little bit away from what you're saying, but that this summer, I can't believe the amount of cars that have come down our road, our small road. It is one of the biggest roads that's being used now, and a lot with motorcycles. And there is a motorcycle group that's, I guess, comes here very regularly now too. And they stream by. And I haven't complained to anybody, but I do think it's because of the town.
you could only complain to yourself, I think. I said you can only complain to yourself, I think.
So let's listen to public discussion. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Let's see if there's any public here. I know that there was an email that went out to the village people, whoever those people are. I don't think it was the people that sing YMCA, but if they're here, I'd love to hear from them. So if we can hear from public comment on agenda item number 2, and then if we want a motion that's back on the agenda for any action, we can do that after. So with that, we would go to agenda item number 2, public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. And the board does respectfully request that public comments do not exceed 2 minutes per person in respect for everyone's time. And again, this is the time for agenda or non-agenda items to be discussed. There is no public in attendance, so.
So I have first recognized its phone number ending in 958. Go ahead and unmute.
Hi, Gary and Nino. Can you hear me?
Go ahead,
Yes,
Gary.
we got you.
Hello? So I was the one who sent the note to the village people, and I respected their anonymity by keeping their emails BCC'd. But it was all the people that took the survey. And the first thing I want to cover is all these things you mentioned, Mike. I understand where you're coming from, but you didn't do any of it when you did Billings Lake. You just did it. So why are we being held to a different standard? That's the first thing. Second thing, when you spoke, I counted I 13 times. This is a town with a board of selectmen. The first selectman doesn't have the right to change a vote because he feels it's necessary. It should go back to the 3 selectmen to review. And there was plenty of time to get this on the agenda so people had advance notice to be here and speak their mind. So this feels a little contrived. And the fact that it's darn near October and the batch plants close in November, there's zero likelihood that these things will be installed this year. What? Excuse me?
That was other public comment that people had unmuted themselves.
Okay. So I just feel completely misled by this, Mike. I'm disappointed. It's not fair. We're going to put in a temporary speed bump on the weekend so everybody who goes to the dump can complain about a speed bump being in the village when they don't live here. when they don't have to deal with people racing up and down the street in the middle of the night. We've had plenty of time to put the troopers on Main Street. 3 years ago, when this first started about speeding in the village, and there was never a trooper presence. So trooper presence now or lowering the speed limit to 15 miles an hour isn't going to do much. How's Main Street going to look when there's a white wooden cross on the side of the road? Think about that, Mike. Thanks.
I didn't hear your first, comment, Gary. I'm sorry. Could you just repeat what your first complaint was? I apologize.
It was that you didn't follow any of this when you put the speed
I'm
bumps
sorry.
in on Billings. You didn't.
I'm
Sorry, I'm on vacation, so I'm calling you from far, far away. So bear with me.
I'm
Because
very
it wasn't
jealous.
on the
I can't
agenda.
wait to go on one someday.
And yet you put it on the agenda, so I felt passionate. I'm calling it. So give me a moment. But you didn't do any of this when you put the speed bumps on Billings Road. I also find it a little concerning. Yeah, I respect Don and what he does every day. Don't get me wrong, Don, by this comment. But how the heck did Don get clued in to come to this, and none of the village people knew to come to this thing in advance?
Okay, thanks for your comment. Donnie's here for a couple other agenda items, so it was great that he was able to come for this as well. I'm not going to respond to that yet. Why don't we see if there's other comments? And
Joe Gross, go ahead and unmute.
Yes, what I'm hearing is people getting very emotional. I get emotional too. I'm not a village person, but I am a town person, and all the village people are part of me and I'm part of them. I support their needs and what they say, but over in Cedar Ridge, we got 3 times the amount of people walking, and we have the same situation. My concern is the traffic commission. Did the traffic commission meet and say they did not support the speed humps? And the historic village is mine. I agree, we want to keep it that way, but as Don just mentioned there, we go back 3 years. Mike Thomas, who was commander of Troop E, he stated, drop that speed limit to 15 miles an hour and I will ticket everything down there, and I will guarantee you that it will stop the speeding. The difference between 15 miles an hour and 25 miles an hour versus 30 miles is 15 miles over the limit versus the other thing. So I believe we should go with these troopers down there and that. And the thing it brought up again tonight, dropping the speed limit, that was brought up. I don't know what the cost of these speed humps are, but if we bought a camera, this is from another gentleman which mentioned this to me tonight. He felt if we had the money, we bought a camera, put it into town, and every car that was, ticketed over that speed limit, we could just mail the ticket out to them. Maybe that's the way to go too, and that would keep the village historic in that. But again, I want to mention that we do have the traffic commission. I want to know, did the traffic commission meet? And is this the traffic commission's thing is no speed humps? That's it for now.
thanks, Joe. I will get through the comments and I'll answer your question after, if there's any others.
Pat Turner, you're recognized. Go ahead and unmute. Pat or Mac Turner, go ahead.
Hello, yeah, this is Mac Turner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I'm sorry we're inept here. First of all, I want to thank you for the stop sign in front of the hardware store. I don't know how that was done. It suddenly appeared. I'm impressed that it has solved a lot of the concerns about traffic in front of the hardware store, well, the brewery now. And I'm impressed that it was installed as tall as it was. I looked at it and thought, gee, no one's going to see it, but it's obviously tall because it can be seen over parked cars. In any event, that works, and somehow it was done without a lot of discussion and controversy. And the same would apply to the pedestrian crosswalks and the I don't know what you call it, but the object that stands in the middle of Main Street to warn people that there's a pedestrian crosswalk. Apparently, people don't see it and it gets hit. But having said all that, and thank you for all of those things, I think it's clear that we want humps, and I'm a little concerned that Don went to New London to look at speed humps when a much more comparable situation would be Noank. And I know quite a few people in Noank. I've never heard anybody complain about the speed humps in Noank, and they seem to be effective. And I don't notice a tremendous amount of signage for them. Now, maybe the next time I drive through Noank, I should look more carefully. But in any event, my point would, or my comment would be, please install the humps before the asphalt plant closes. We've asked you for it. There's enough talking. This was on the agenda when I was on the Board of Selectmen, 97 to 2003, and nothing's been done, and it's high time we put speed humps in the village. I think they're needed, and they're a good idea. Thank you very much.
Mac, could you just clarify your position? Are you in favor of the speed humps? I couldn't quite understand what you said.
I am strongly in favor of the speed humps, and I'm frustrated that it's taken so long to get anything done. I think all the traffic remediations that have been done in the village have been effective, and I think the speed humps would be effective.
I think you should blame the 1997 Board of Selectmen for that.
That works for me. I'm fine with that.
I'm going to put the blame there. All right. Thank you, Mac.
I also would comment that I absolutely agree with that, and Noank is a better parallel.
Pat, we can't hear you if you're commenting. Pat, if you could speak into the phone a little better.
Okay, I absolutely agree with the comments, and that Noank is a better comparison. I'm frustrated with looking at New London. We're not New London. But as far as painting the road, nobody complained about the crosswalks. They're fine. They're not disruptive of the historic character of the village. Lowering the speed limit to 15, I think, is overkill. I don't think people will do it. The speed bumps are geared to 20 to 25 miles an hour. So I think that's absolutely the right solution.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments? Any other hands up? This is public comment for any agenda or non-agenda items. And if we have no more, we can move on. Okay. We may want to have more discussion on the speed humps. Do we want to motion the agenda item on to the agenda to have some more discussion after the feedback we just received?
Why don't we do that? Because if it's an agenda item and we would allow people to speak on agenda items at the end of the meeting, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so why don't we move it to somewhere later in the meeting so we can have further discussion?
Why don't we move it, if we could, towards the beginning, only because the highway foreman, if we wanted his expertise, he probably can leave after agenda item 5. So I'll just do it as 5A. Is that all right?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so motion, do we have a motion to add speed hump discussion and or action as agenda item number 5A?
So moved.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, so number 3, staffing update. A couple things. So I did mention at the start of the meeting that we had Cheryl Lynch, our new administrative assistant, here with us tonight. So welcome, Cheryl. Happy to have her with us. And we're also really pleased that we have our new planning development zoning official who has joined us, Nate Reichert. He did start on Wednesday, and I'd like to just thank the hiring team for their work in his selection, which was Lou Steinbecker, Bob Carlson, Brett Mastriani, Nicole Porter, and Elaine Boisevane. So we appreciate their efforts on taking extra time to interview candidates. And we're really thrilled to have Nate with us. So he's he's there for our planning, zoning, and development needs. The last update I have is that we did, if you recall, we did have an RFP that we did for the water testing that was needed to comply with the new update for our sewer avoidance plan, as it's called, that we need to do some testing to update that. It's a 20-year plan, and it's up right now to be redone. And in order to have data, in order to update that plan, there's some water testing that needed to be done. We did not get any bids when we put that out there. However, the Day did do an article that on the fact that we didn't get any bids, and we had two people get in touch with us. One was a firm, and the other one was an individual who actually lives just in Norwich, and actually had worked for DEP and has worked with a couple of towns on kind of similar type projects. So myself and one member of the WPCA did meet with both entities to kind of interview them to see if they would be a fit. We did receive proposals from both entities. And so the one that we far and beyond were pretty excited about was the individual. And the selectmen have discussed this as well now in the negotiations portion of our executive session in the previous meeting. And we basically, what we want to do here is I want to move forward with actually hiring this individual to work a maximum of 10 hours per week to help us with not only the water testing part of it, but if we all are aware that our water sewer initiatives are among the highest priorities in town I gotta be careful per our plan of conservation and development. And so this individual will be able to help support our WPCA, as well as the water testing, as well as the directions that we need to take in order to kind of move certain things forward. So what I'd like to do is extend kind of an offer of employment. We have money in capital for this. It'd be a temporary situation unless the future Board of Selectmen wishes to extend a more permanent situation. So what I do is move forward with an offer to Bill Wazika for temporary employment as our water and sewer, I guess you'd say, consultant for the town. And so I'd look for a motion to go ahead and work on an offer and work out a negotiation with him to move forward.
So Mike, I think Bill's an excellent candidate. I think we're lucky to have someone like that can come in, kind of fall on our laps a little bit after he read the article. He's got a heck of a lot of experience. He also did some work with Uncas, so he's familiar with the health district up in the Norwich area. Makes sense to me to bring him on, even in a temporary fashion. The other company was also one that had all the credentials, but I think this would be a better fit for us. He'd be an employee, he'd be willing to work with us and with some of our boards. I think the other company would be paying more money, and they would be strictly only within the guidelines of what we hired them for. So I think it's a good move on our part, and I will motion that we extend an offer to William Wazika.
And I second it.
Any further discussion? And the only thing I'd add is, he will support our boards, which I think our boards could use that expertise. Our WPCA, who's a good board, but certainly could use some help navigating. And I know he'll be a great help to our planner as well coming in. So
Mike, I think anytime we can realize that we don't have all the answers and there's people out there, we can get them. And anytime we can bring experience to the town and things like this, we'd be crazy to pass on it. So I think it's a win-win for everybody.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Agenda item number 4, Lantern Hill Road reclassification. So we were approached from the Connecticut Council of Governments, Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments. I think you are aware, because we've gotten some letters from citizens in the past, the Lantern Hill Bridge needs to be replaced. It is not North Stonington's bridge. It is a Ledyard Stonington bridge. However, it is a throughway that some parts of that road are in North Stonington. They have struggled, those towns, with funding the bridge, and to the point where they didn't fund it. And there was a lot of concern from citizens, and we received some of that feedback as a board, even though it's not in our town or jurisdiction. A great idea was hatched by the Council of Governments to reclassify this road in a way that would help it get funding, potentially federally funding or LoSAP funding, which is a much lower, there is a match from the town. I don't think North Stonington wouldn't be asked to match any of the bridge money, I don't think. But if there is a plan to fix the road, and that road could use some repairs, we may be brought in potentially on that. But this reclassification allows them to go for funding sources that they cannot currently go after. So it's on the agenda, and I would like us to make the reclassification. Donnie's here tonight, and he is aware of it as well. We had a conference call with the Council of Governments, and he agrees that it's not a bad move to make for the town. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, so I took a road trip to Land Hill Road and drove it, measured the width. I noted how many cars I passed going from 214 to 184. I think there could be an argument either way, whether it classifies as a collector road or a local road. You could argue that case either way. It is the only road that connects 184 to 214, which is a direct route to Foxwoods. Of the 5 miles you travel going from 214 to 184, we own 1 mile, almost exactly 1 mile of it. 20% of the road is in North Stonington. The bridge, as Mike said, is not. It connects Stonington and Ledged. So I think being a good neighbor and understanding that funding could be had by reclassification, I wouldn't want to stand in their way because I would hope that those towns would do the same thing for us if roles were reversed. But when it comes to paying, I think the fact that the bridge not being in our town and the fact that we only maintain 20% of the road, I think that we'd have to have discussions on what the liability to North Stonington would be before we agreed to anything further. But as far as just the reclassification of the road, it makes sense. I think it's the good neighbor thing to do. And again, hopefully that would be reciprocal somewhere down the road. So I'm in favor of approving the reclassification to a collector road.
Nita, do you have any comments on it?
No, I agree.
All right, do we have a motion to make that to approve the reclassification as presented?
I'll make a motion that we approve the reclassification of Lane Hill Road from a local road to a collector road.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0-0. Number 5, LoSAP 5-year plan. So this is something that we typically have done in the spring, just as part of our normal annual town meeting process. But as Donnie had mentioned in his opening comments, he was out on medical in the spring. So we want to bring this forward. We do have probably a town meeting upcoming. So it makes sense to just kind of move it forward. You have the proposed LoSAP 5-year plan in your packet. Donnie's here in case you have any questions about it. I think it's a good plan. It kind of looks at different areas of town and maybe just a brief review for the selectmen and the public about what this LoSAP plan, I got to not do that, what the LoSAP plan represents and how the funding is. I don't know, Christine, if you want to kind of give an overview on that.
Yep. So LoSAP funds come directly from the state of Connecticut. It's a grant that is not limited to the actual year that it's received. It's one of the few ones that we can roll forward. The town has to approve the 5-year LoSAP plan, and projects must be on that plan in order for us to proceed with them. So we submit the project in advance to the state before we start working on it. We get the approval, and then we pay out, and then we're reimbursed for the state funds on that project. The state funds aren't given out until the spring. They actually are given out to the town in March. So we want to make sure that we have everything lined up so that when we get the approval to start using state funds this spring, we can move forward with the projects.
Donnie, do you want to add anything else or?
just to give you a little background on how we decide what roads we're gonna put onto that. As you know, we're trying to finish up Cedars this year, hopefully have that done. And another project over at Kingswood to finish that out, Kingswood this year, and then hopefully next year finish Kingswood development out, and then we won't have to worry about that. Hopefully the rest as long as we're still alive. Then it's determined by how, when we drive around roads, how much crack sealing we're doing. Crack sealing, we started in the town. We weren't doing it before. And then we started doing it, and the crack sealing saves the road for about 3 to 5 years estimated. It depends on how bad the road was before we get on it. So then we determined what roads we did the most crack sealing on based on the material we used. And then it goes on to the LoSiP plan to put that road in place for that following year or a year, 2 years down the road to get it repaired.
Thank you, Donnie. Do the selectmen have any comments or questions on the 5-year LoSiP plan? By the way, this will be approved by us and it will go to town meeting for, that's what we have to do as part of the approval for getting the funding.
No, I understand the plan. It makes sense to move forward.
I agree.
Do I have a motion to accept the plan as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I think that brings us to our sidewalk ad. I think I made that 5A, right? Speed hump ad. So I want to address a couple of the comments that were asked in the, first of all, I want to take the time to commend Donnie on the research that he did on this. You know, New London, although New London is not North Stonington, speed humps are speed humps wherever they are. And yes, it may be different to see them in an application in a Noank or somewhere like that, but they are still going to be the same size. They're going to still be the same thing. And he did a lot of work on this, and I really appreciate it. And I take absolute full responsibility for putting the brakes on it. I put the brakes on it knowing we had a meeting upcoming, and it did not get added to the regular agenda, and I apologize for that. I think it was just an oversight on my part. So for that, I apologize, but I want to address a couple of, it's on the agenda now, and we've not only did we amend the agenda to have it, but we talked about it. We allowed the public to comment on it, and we're talking about it again. So we're trying to be very transparent. It does upset me to continue to have conspiracy theories thrown about things, and I don't think it's necessary. We're all taxpayers here. We're all trying to do the best we can for the town, and that's why the brakes were put on the project, because I think we really needed to take a look at this. This is some very new, important information that is going to be very visually impactful to everybody who drives through the village. I want to mention Billings Lake because that was brought up. Billings Lake, when we put those speed bumps there, we had a really crazy situation going on Billings Lake. No one, unless you live there, you did not know about it, because most people, unless they use the lake, don't go down there. We had arrests. We had, with COVID happening, we had an unbelievable amount of people flocking to the lake, unlike ever before. We had cars up, and it was insane. If you didn't go down there, you wouldn't have known it. So we had to take some drastic action, and that was based on feedback that we had with the troopers, with the state, with the fishing people, with the highway. We made good decisions there, and it helped to fix the issue last year. So we try to make decisions, and now we have a traffic commission. So decisions like this, and Joe asked about, did the traffic commission weigh in on this? I want to be clear. We made this decision on these speed humps before we had a traffic commission. They did not weigh in on it initially because we didn't have them. I did bring it to the traffic commission after the fact, telling them that they wouldn't be able to make a decision on it, but they could give us their advice, but knowing that they wouldn't have an impact on the decision because it was already made. So normally any of these types of issues now, if we have issues, we bring them to the traffic commission. It's a great process. We have a really great dedicated group of people. Of course, our highway foreman's on that, along with the trooper and 3 other citizens. So the traffic commission, they were concerned about the installation of the speed humps, but they knew that our decision was already voted on and made. So they knew that they weren't going to impact that decision. There was a comment from Mac about the stop sign. I think the stop sign has solved a huge problem that we had down there. I remember when I did go into the Village Hardware store at the time, there was always complaints that people were rushing by there, and we have definitely slowed we fixed the problem really there as best as we could. Now that it's a three-way stop, it was a smart decision, and it's much safer for people down there now. And I have one other note here, but I can't read my writing, so it's not important. Other than that, do the selectmen want to weigh in on any of the feedback that we just heard?
Just a couple of questions. Donnie, the speed bumps that are on Billings Lake, which aren't speed humps, I understand, is the different criteria for signage and paint?
Those are removable. They're absolutely horrible. We put them in, and I don't think it was 3 weeks we were getting complaints about people getting tires popped because the bolts were coming up through. So we had to go out there and fix it. Fortunately, nobody made a complaint to the town about other than, you popped my tire. So they are yellow and they go across the road, and there are speed hump signs or speed bump signs at every single one. I believe there's 3 of them up there.
There's
They
one
are
on each
removable.
side, but they're not that, correct? They're smaller?
No, because as I got further into the speed hump thing and went and researched the one, and the reason we researched the one in London, because that's what we want to make. That same size, the same width and the length, the height, the whole 9 yards. Because that one's conformed to the National Traffic Safety Board's recommendation for a speed hump.
Is there different recommendations for a highway, which is what's in New London, and what we're proposing in North Stonington Village, similar to maybe I'll take a ride to Noank tomorrow and check those out to see what they look like, but is there different criteria?
I'm going by what I read in the National Traffic Safety booklet that I got from New London, and I'm going by what they told me. Now, theirs was installed many years ago. As a matter of fact, the highway foreman didn't even know when they were put in, but those were also put in by a contractor.
New London or Noank?
New London.
Okay. I had no other questions. Thank you.
Nina, do you have any other questions?
No.
So Bob, I'm trying to get these conform to what they say we should have them conform to. So if there is a problem later on down the road, that you can argue your case.
So here's what I'm thinking, and I'm not an attorney, so tough to argue a case, but here's what I'm thinking is when a group of people in a town come to leadership and they say, this is what we want, okay? And leadership after 2 or 3 years finally agrees, yes, we agree, we will do that for you. And then it doesn't happen. And it didn't happen because of cold weather last year. Now, obviously you were injured for a while and then things got pushed off, and now this new information about the signage and the paint and how that might be a pushback to some of the people in the village that may not know what the ultimate look would be to have 8 speed humps. But the bottom line is when people come to us, and there was a survey done, and I think it was about 90% of the villages said, we want these things. If we don't listen and we don't do what they've said, even if we might find out 3 years from now that this is the biggest mistake we ever made, and we might find out it's the best thing. I'll bet you there was many people that said they didn't want that stop sign in front of the hardware store, the brewery. And now some of those same people have said to me, gee, that stop sign is working. Well, who knew? It could have been a big mistake, or it could be a great thing. It seems like it's working a lot more than people gave it credit for. This could be the same thing, but if we don't act, so 10 years from now, when we're all gone and there's no speed humps and we didn't listen to the people and somebody does get hurt and there is a white cross on the side of the road and they say, back in 2021, the selectmen had a chance to put these in and they didn't do it. Shame on them. We've asked them 3 times and we didn't do it. I'd rather put them in and find out we made a mistake and have to rip them out down the road than not put them in at all and have something happen that we didn't listen to the people that we work for. So that's the end of my comment.
I would just say, just a point of clarity. My recollection, and I think it's correct, and Christine, you might recall, and if you don't, it's fine, but we've done a lot of research and homework and discovery. We've taken action. Like, we've done certain things. We've added a stop sign. We added a pedestrian lane. This speed hump thing came up, I think, last year in like November or whatever time it was. So I don't like when we're talking about, well, this was discussed 3 years ago. First of all, I brought up the speed hump idea. I did. And no one else even thought about speed humps before I brought it up. And I'm not trying to take credit for it. I'm trying to clarify the fact because I'm not sure about it. Okay, so they didn't ask for speed humps until speed humps were brought up as an idea, and that was in November. So it's not like it's been that long that we haven't acted on it.
So Mike, can I comment?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I was attending the committee meetings for what used to be called the Historic Village Improvement Committee. And that started out as a sidewalk committee and then evolved into many other things. But the speed hump discussion, speed bump discussion was discussed then. And that was probably 2 to 3 years ago.
Speed bumps were discussed. I don't think anybody ever, and there is a difference. I mean,
Oh, I know there's a difference, but I
Yeah.
think the concept was discussed then, not just in November, it was discussed prior to that.
I mean, the problem with the speed bumps, which is where we ended up with the humps, is that we had a lot of concerns from like emergency response and things like that, because, you know, those can do a little bit of a damage on a vehicle, as Donnie described. The speed bumps they're much more. So I think a speed hump is definitely a good compromise.
So moving forward, though, we need to take some sort of action. Instead of going back and relive how it came about. Now we're at a point, we have about a 6-week window. What will we do over these next 6 weeks to either put in one hump, no humps, paint the road, put in signage, have a meeting, let the villagers come, put in 3, put in 8? I mean, where do we go from here?
Well, there's a couple of courses of action. Well, first of all, if we do nothing tonight, we already voted to put these in. So I can just say, Donnie, call back up the company, see when the earliest they can come back out is, and we just put them in. I mean, that can be done. I wanted to bring it back because I was concerned about things that I think people weren't aware of. So there wasn't any intent to not necessarily do the speed humps. It was just, I think we needed to hit the pause button because this is kind of a big deal, I think. And I think we agree that there's more to it here than we initially thought.
So how fast could we do a mock-up on one speed hump in town? Not the hump itself, but the paint and the signage and everything that exactly the way it would be.
Well, we can do that, and that's not going to take any time. But I think Gary's point is well taken, that all you're going to do if you put something like that in is you're inviting more people to complain about something that may not even affect them that much because they don't live there. So I'm not really sure if that's the right decision to do. I mean, I think we have the information here. We now know we didn't have this information before now. We just got it this last week that we knew what was. So I would think the 3 of us, and we are the traffic commission in town, even though we have a traffic commission that reports to us, their advisory, we are the traffic commission. So if we feel based on this information that we've received that we want to continue to proceed with it, then we just do that. If you feel based on the information you received that you don't want to, or you want to do less speed humps, or you want to change the speed limit, I mean, those are the things we talk about. I mean, if you're saying you want more feedback, I don't know if that's helpful. I don't really know if it is. I just wanted us to be aware of it. I think we're going to get people who want them, they don't want them.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
Originally, one of the other slope things was my fault because we wanted to install them ourselves. But then when I realized there's a lot more that goes into these things, just throwing asphalt to a certain height on the road, that we couldn't do that.
Well, it was a discussion that we actually had, and I said to you, Donnie, that I would recommend that we went to a contractor so we know at what degree, at what height equals what speed, right? Someone that has a history of putting in speed humps so we know what can be driven over at 15, 20, 25, and 30 mile an hour. And also built the right way so we wouldn't have drainage issues with this. People's front yards are flooding now, you know, people's driveways are impacted. So it made sense to go to a contract, right? And you guys do a lot of great things, but I don't think you have background in putting in speed humps. I mean,
That's
let's,
correct. And
so.
that's how I learned about all this other stuff, was actually looking into this even further, you know, what the plans are. And the other reason we went to London is we took our laser level down there and we shot heights to one there, distances, just took pictures the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, so I just wish you had gone to more of a town or a village more like ours. So I will take a ride to Noank tomorrow, just look at those. I know Rhode Island's different than Connecticut, and I go through Shelter Harbor and all those when I was working all those towns, and they have them down there. Some are bumps, some are humps. But I think that's different. So I'll look in a smaller place in Connecticut, see what they look like. But I think the ones in New London, that's like a highway. So it's a little bit different there.
The thing about that too, Bob, is that we've already set plans that, to the contractor. So if we decide to change those plans, you're gonna have to give me a little time to work with him. And we are going with a contractor, so I don't know what his schedule's.
Plans as far as specs for each hump.
Correct.
Okay, so why would we change those?
Well, you're saying they're going to Noank, they're probably different than that. I don't know if they conform to what the National Traffic Safety Board is.
I just want to drive over them, see what kind of signage they have and take a couple of pictures. That's all.
Will
Yeah,
you take some pictures?
Yeah, I would say the likelihood is those have been there for a long time, so they may not conform to whatever the current national traffic, but it doesn't hurt to look at them. I mean, absolutely. I think it's helpful. I don't know if I don't want anybody to think we're trying to stall something here. That's not the point. And unfortunately, the paving plants do close. I agree with that statement. They do close, I think, in around 6 weeks from now. So I don't know if you want to take more time to gather a little bit more information, if we want to get more.
So Mike, if we have a vote on the 28th, after we've got 2 more weeks of information, and we vote to move forward, or at least put the vote for speed humps back on the table, we already approved them to move forward or not to move forward. If we did that on the 28th, would we still have time to get them in before it got too cold?
We don't know what the contractor's availability is going to be. We in theory, absolutely. But if they come back and say, well, sorry, we're booked up for the next 2-3 weeks, and then the paving plan, I mean, we don't know that for sure. The likelihood is probably, but we don't know that. We can't guarantee that.
Can't you call them in advance right now and find out if there's?
Well, what are we going to say to them? We could call them and say, would you be available the week of the after the 28th if we're going to move this forward? We can certainly ask them that. We can ask them.
That'd be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Just know whether it's possible.
We can ask them that. Yeah, we can ask them that.
So why don't we make a decision tonight that we will make a speed hump decision once and for all on the 28th.
Sounds good to me. Okay. Donnie, thank you very much for all your work on it and all
Thanks,
the
Donnie.
information. Appreciate it. I do that. All right, moving on. Additional appropriations.
You start with the low sips or?
Where's that?
Yeah, so we have a additional appropriation request to move B27 low SIP current from undesignated fund, the use of $48,881, the use of for FY 2021 state low SIP grant for road work. So that would move to the Board of Finance and then of course to town meeting.
That's going to go to finance tomorrow night.
Yeah, okay, hopefully they'll take it up tomorrow night. I think it's on their agenda, right? Yeah.
So
Depends if you guys-
can we just get a little more explanation on it?
So the timing of the projects last year, we didn't use our LoSiP funds last fiscal year because we were waiting on the final approval because the LoSiP project was closely related to the Steep Road project. And we were waiting for the final okay from the state to move forward on the Steep project. And we didn't receive that before the end of the fiscal year. So because these funds can roll forward, we don't have any issue with the state using them this fiscal year, but they're not technically in the budget. So we have to get the approval from the town to use the budget, use basically the banked money this fiscal year.
Thank you.
Because it's over 20.
Any other questions on that additional appropriation? Okay, so do we have a motion to accept the appropriation as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There was no other appropriations? We waiting on or we already went forward with the other one, never mind. Sorry, I was getting confused on the software, but that'll be once we call a town meeting. We already did that. All right, number 7 is the American Rescue Plan funds. Christine attended a meeting with other town manager administration type people. So I asked her to give a recap of that meeting. I thought it might be helpful for the Board of Selectmen. So if you want to give a brief overview.
So I'm a member of the Connecticut Town and City Management Association. So we've been having some Zoom meetings because we're obviously not getting together in person with everything COVID related. And we had a specific meeting on August 18th to talk about how everyone was utilizing their rescue plan funds, processes that they were going through, different ways that they were logistically handling it, and then also impact or the input that they were getting from their boards and also from their residents. So the overwhelming majority of everyone is using the funds for capital projects that were already a part of their capital plan. Those projects obviously have to fit in with the uses that are approved for the rescue plan funds. But they are, again, overwhelmingly majority capital one-time projects, not things that are going to need to be budgeted in future times. A lot of them are going through the exercise of calculating the lost revenue, but those are towns that are getting upwards of $6 million. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to use that money. So that's why they're doing the revenue calculations. Those are also towns that have additional revenue that come in from municipal parking lots, from ticketing from their police departments, things that we just really don't have in North Stonington. Some of them are doing have done focus groups with members of the Board of Selectmen, planning and zoning, economic development, and staff and public. I think that the way that we handled it as far as talking about it in a town meeting and bringing it forward as we do at Selectmen's meetings, I think we give the public a multitude of opportunity to give us their feedback on what's happening. We are the only town that is going through that was represented at this meeting that is going through the process of approving it through the Board of Selectmen, approving it through the Board of Finance, and then bringing it to town meeting for final approval if it's over $20,000. You know, some of them are chartered towns, so it makes it a little bit easier to do things. And some towns have implemented an ordinance on how to use the funds. But we're it as far as the way that we are handling it. So I think we need to look at what other towns are doing. I think other towns are also trying to work with partners to help them distribute the funds. So I think we need to keep moving on the track that we're on with the use of a lot of it.
Comments from, I mean, just to clarify for those who may not have been on other meetings, we had decided to go through our normal appropriation process for the use of these funds, even though the auditor said we didn't have to do that. Our town attorney kind of thought it would be advisable, so that they were in conflict and we just erred on the side of being conservative. So it hasn't been a problem thus far. It's a little bit more time consuming, I guess, but you know, we've been able to move pretty expeditiously through the process. So I don't see it as an issue.
I think we're doing it the right way.
Any other feedback on Christine's comments? Christine, thanks for that
That's
update
fine.
and thanks for
Good
attending
job.
those meetings. The second thing in item B is technology. So there's I think we have an allocation that we're looking to make there. Christine will detail that.
So I sat down with our IT director and talked about what we've been doing to make sure that people are able to attend our meetings. We've done a tremendous amount of technology upgrades very quickly to make sure that people can hear us on this very meeting, and making sure that, you know, we're as accessible as we can be. And those weren't but necessarily budgeted items. We've tried to make things work, but with planning to continue our Zoom subscription with our multiple accounts and the ability to have not meetings, the other form is the way that we hold a meeting when we have a town meeting. I'll think of it.
Hybrid meeting?
No,
It's the type of
webinar,
subscription, webinar, yeah.
having the
Oh,
webinars.
webinar.
It costs a decent amount of money every month that we didn't budget. So I am asking that we have a not to exceed $7,500 for technology related to COVID-19. That includes $2,220 for a 12-month subscription to Zoom. It includes the 6 wireless microphones that we've already purchased, the handheld microphones and stands that we have for public comment, the new camera interface and cables, and the new speaker system that we've purchased. This also gives us those items total $5,662.72. So that just gives us a little bit of additional funding in case something breaks or we find some new technology that's going to make it even better. When we had the first hybrid town meeting back, I want to say in April, we were already so far ahead of what we had been doing, and now we're leaps and bounds ahead of that. So I think, as other towns continue to do meetings in this way, they may give us tips of different things that we can implement that are going to be helpful. So I just think that not to exceed 7,500 number would definitely be helpful.
That totally makes sense. We're in a different world. We have to go this route. I think we're going to be in hybrid for a while, and who knows down the road. I mean, you wouldn't know by tonight's attendance, but in general, we get better attendance at meetings since we've gone to this format. The only concern I had tonight was, I think we've done on our end pretty much a good job getting technology brought up to snuff with these better microphones and so on. But I could not understand a couple of the callers that called in tonight on public comment. I had trouble hearing. It was gobbled what they were trying to say. So I don't know how we can fix it on that end, on the incoming end, but I think on the outgoing end, from what I've heard, we're much more, it's easier to understand what we're saying, and as long as we speak into the microphone. But we're doing a good job on our end. I just wish I would have heard Mac's comments and Gary's comments a little clearer than I did.
Yeah, I think the problem with Gary was it was windy where he was. Mac, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to Jim. I think it might be when it's just us, a matter of us tilting that speaker a little bit, because the sound's going that way and we're over here. And with not getting feedback and other technical things, you have to have it a certain way, but I'll work with him and see what we can do.
So if we have public comment at the end and if someone decides they want to comment, I'll get up and move that speaker and see if it makes a
Yeah.
difference.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Is there, I would just, our Ps are the problem with these, so he can, if there's little pads that go over these probably.
We found that if you talk to the side of it
Oh.
and not directly into it, it helps a little.
Oh,
bit
okay.
as well.
Mhm.
Well, good tip. Thank you. And that does, because I said tip and it didn't do that. So, so we would be looking for a motion for an additional appropriation from the ARPA funds for not to exceed $7,500. Is that accurate?
Yes, and I would say not to exceed 7,500 this fiscal year.
This fiscal year.
Mhm.
Does anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
I will second that motion.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And on C, on the business development front, I didn't receive anything for us to look at in advance of the meeting. So hopefully we'll have something prior to our next meeting on that.
Mike, just in clarity, when we went to the meeting, there was two things they discussed. One was a plan for almost immediate bonus plan for hiring. I think it was maybe a bonus to when you started work and a bonus if you were there for so long. And then there was a second plan. That was a smaller plan. That might have been like 15,000. But then there was a second plan for maybe 100,000 or 150,000, which was going to be supplemental to small businesses that have lost money. So we're talking about two different things here. One of them, I think they were going through sector on, which might have been the first one. Have we heard back from EDC on the $100,000 plan or the bigger plan?
I haven't received anything back from them to provide to you.
I am so surprised. I think we listened to them and they really, and they really seemed like they wanted to, Brett and the other two women.
So I contacted them earlier in the week, the chair earlier in the week, and then sent a reminder email on Friday that I needed something for your packet, as you always require. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, so we had nothing in writing on this, and like with every single other appropriation, I mean, I think if we're gonna bring something forward to the town, which we would have to, or even to the Board of Finance, we have always gotten something in writing. We did it with the Cultural Coalition. We did it with all of the appropriations. So,
Okay, so just a comment on that. So, and I agree with you, we should have something in writing, although Christine just gave a report, not in writing, that we approved for because it wasn't over $20,000, we approved on the spot tonight for $7,500. If the part of the plan, which was the bonus plan, was 15,000, and again, did not have to go to a town meeting, couldn't Brett or the EDC give us some sort of a presentation that we could have listened to, as we did with Christine, and approve that this evening?
we could, did that not go to the selectmen, what you just gave us? Okay, my apologies. Yeah, I mean, I'm not prepared to bring it forward tonight. So I'd like to see, there was, the thing that I didn't hear clarity on was, Sector is supposed to be overseeing these funds. And I don't know that that was decided, or it wasn't decided, or how those conversations took place. If you guys want an update on this, we can have one, but I don't know that we'd move anything forward tonight.
Well, I'm just saying that, so myself and Nita didn't have the information that Christine just provided, and we listened to it and it made sense, and we decided to appropriate the money. Myself and Nita did go to the meeting, and if there was a presentation given by the EDC chair this evening and we listened to it, it made sense, then we would go through the same procedure that we just did with Christine's information. So whether you're prepared or not, I think it's, if we did it for one, we could do it for the other one. And it wasn't in our packet this evening, Christine's presentation.
It certainly was not. You're right. So we have set a precedent. So I can't disagree with you on that, Bob. So
is this number 7 on here related to that? Isn't it related to
7C.
7C.
7C?
So I don't know if the EDC chair is here and wants to give us a brief update on where things are. Is he here? So if he's, I don't know if he's prepared or not to give an update, but we could go to him if he's on the call. Brett, are you on the call? You just have to unmute if you are.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did you want to give us an update as to the EDC meeting and any update on the business development rescue plan funds?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we voted at our last meeting to request 1% of the CARES Act money for, sorry, I'm walking as I'm doing this. I'm going to sit down in a second, to request it for business employee sign-on bonus. It was brought to our commission that a big chunk of the problems they are having are recruiting and hiring employees in North Stonington. So we've been talking to Sector about them administering this part of the process. Our board voted to request the 1%, which equals 15,000, and that would equate to a $500 bonus after 8 weeks of employment. Sector would be administering it. We would be writing the checks. Basically is that process. There are a few key points that we still need to tweak with Sector, and then vote on it as a board, but we were hoping to discuss it here with you guys tonight and then move that to the Board of Finance tomorrow, so we can get the money that is needed to these employers as soon as possible and not have it linger until the next Board of Finance meeting. The other project is the larger one, and we plan on presenting that at your next Board of Selectmen meeting. But this is one that we've discussed in detail with the board. Bob and Nita were both present at that meeting. And it's to really help these businesses quickly find the employees they need. So like I said, there were 2 key points that we need to firm up, and that was whether we wanted to offer this for part-time employees at a certain hour contingency. But those are minute details of the plan. But that was really the only thing that still needed to be discussed at an EDC meeting, but we voted to move this request forward to you and then work on that, the small little detail. But then it would be able sector to administer this a week after, a week from today. So EDC would have our meeting on Tuesday. If this got approved, then sector would run with it and help us market it and administer the process.
Thank you for that summary, Brett.
No problem. And I'm open to any questions.
Sure. Do the selectmen have questions?
So Brett, on the small points that you're trying to still iron out, once those are ironed out, sector will be administering this plan. It will not be EDC decisions on who gets the money and how much money and so on. And the plan's going to be formalized, given to sector, and they'll get back to you on who's applied, who's been approved, and then we basically just pay the bill, correct?
Correct. This is for the employee hiring bonus.
Yeah, no, I understand what it is.
Yep. Yeah, so they would handle all the applications. They would confirm the 8 weeks of employment and then do the individual employee requests from the town. And anything under 600, we don't have to 1099 as well.
So Brett, another question. How will the local businesses be informed that this program, once approved, is out there for them to use so they can start advertising bonuses after 8 weeks of employment?
So we plan on using social media, the quarterly, and hopefully Mike's weekly address or bi-weekly address, get it out there. And to be honest with you, I'd like to sit down with the new planning development and zoning officer and talk to him about some business visitations and getting it out there that way as well. And sector is also going to help. So we haven't firmed up whether they can do some email blasts for us, but I'm sure we can get the chamber to do some blasts for us as well. And this is on a rolling basis until the money is used.
So one fear I have is that not all people look at the means that you're going to put the information out on. I immediately think of restaurants because they're the ones that you hear the most about the radios. They close on Mondays or they have to close at 8 o'clock. What about, I mean, it's open to all businesses in town, correct? So landscapers and the like, carpenters.
Yep,
So
all
the people
for-profit businesses.
I would just not be, in my mind, be fair unless we can get the message out to all businesses in town that hire employees. Do we have a list of businesses that have employees?
Yeah, we have a business list. We don't have emails for all of them, but we do have a pretty extensive list, and especially the brick and mortars locations and most of the landscapers. We also, just so as you talk, we put a cap on it of 3 employees per business that can take advantage of this. One thing I plan on bringing back to the board is, do we want to put a cap on it about the amount of employees that business already currently has? So if a business has 100 employees or 50 employees, are we not opening it up to them? So that's something that has come out with discussions with sector to try to really impact those businesses that need it the most.
I have no more questions.
Yeah, do you have questions?
No, I was thinking as though we would see something so we could, really understand exactly what this is going to be.
So I think once it's finalized, we should, as selectmen, get a copy of the finished package once sector's done with it, and we know, so we have a copy, an email copy, a hard copy, something that we know exactly what The concept we understand is a good concept. It's just a matter of working out these final details. So if they can get those worked out and we can get a copy of that, that would be
It would be-
wise. But I know at one of our last meetings, we talked about how time is of the essence. We're going into the cold weather months where you can't eat outdoors anymore pretty soon. And I think of some of the restaurants and once you eliminate the outdoor seating, they've just eliminated 20% of their clientele's seating ability. So to me, the sooner we work on this, the better.
Right, Bob, at our EDC meeting, we talked about getting the approval from you guys and Board of Finance, and then working out the final small details, and then that would be available to you, but getting the approval for the dollar value and the amount based on the outline of the program is really what we're looking for. So this all ties into, and as we look at it further down the road, it all ties into businesses also being able to recruit in time for the holidays, and also those employees that are hired being able to get their bonus in time for the holidays as well, which might be an extra incentive for these businesses to get the recruitment that we're trying to work on. So our ask, and I apologize, I didn't see Mike's email on Friday asking for a written write-up by the end of that day. So otherwise you would have had the skeleton of what this is, but you wouldn't have the details, the absolute details, I should say, because it still is it's a fluid process, and we plan on voting on that on EDC meeting next Tuesday for all the final details. But the skeleton is what we were looking to get approved, in the dollar amount is what we were looking to get approved from you guys tonight to send it to Board of Finance. And if that's something that you guys do approve, and I need to write something up for Board of Finance tomorrow, and email it out to them, I'm more than willing to do that and happy to do that. But like I said, it is just the outline. There's a few little details that still need to be voted on as the board once it's the appropriations approved for this program. And that's really what we're looking for, is an approval of this program.
All right, thank you for your thank you for your comments, Brett. And thank you for your work and everyone's work on pulling this together. We heard back when we had that meeting with Sector and the chambers about how getting employees was the biggest problem they were having. And so this is really important. I think the most important thing that you're doing here is utilizing Sector as the approving agency. These are federal dollars. So I think with anything like this, we need partners like Sector to be the approving agency. And that way it kind of takes the liability and it gives credibility to the program. I know a lot of businesses would probably be less than excited to have to submit financial information to the town. So I think that's really important. There's some unknowns here. And I'm always kind of willing to try to push things forward, certainly, but I know my board has always requested me to get them things in their Friday packet. So that's why I had asked for something, so that they would act on it tonight. If the board is willing to act on this tonight, in principle, I don't have a problem with it. My only caveat to that would be that we would not release any sort of funds to be used until we saw the final program. I don't think we could in good conscience do that. I also think if we're going to send something to Board of Finance that we haven't seen, that's not something we normally would ever do. So I'm not looking to I'm not trying to hold anything up, but the only thing I will say, and I'll try to be as diplomatic about this as possible, is that this was talked about early last week. This was communicated that we needed this in advance. We didn't get it in advance. So, I know that I'm
No offense, but you requested
excuse me a second.
For that day.
I'm held to standards always in the community about making sure that we've properly vetted absolutely everything and that we're not rushing anything forward. So this is no different than any other thing that we usually talk about. And I just want to make sure that if we move things forward, we're not going to have any backlash from it. Christine, you can ask, you have questions? I know you haven't seen any of this either, so maybe you could ask questions from the financial.
Okay, Brett, I have two important questions. One, you're asking for $15,000 for this program. Is Sector charging anything to administer it?
No, Sector is not charging anything to administer this program.
Okay, and then you say that the town would be writing the checks. Is the town writing the checks to the businesses or directly to the employees?
Directly to the employees.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check logistically if the town is allowed to do that. Because my conversations with the accounting generalist, when we had talked about some sort of an incentive program, if they're not employees of the town, we would not be able to do this. I will just say that part of why the technology was not included in the packet was because it was an internal office request to be distributed. I will just ask anyone who has questions on how we're going to use rescue plan funds. If you can come and talk to me before we bring anything to a board so that we can see what logistically is possible on the town's behalf.
Like I said, we've been working with the Sector, and they're dealing with the federal grants all the time. So she's the one that made the advice to pay directly from the town to the employee instead of the employer.
If they're not an employee of the town, I don't know that we can do that. So I will have to talk to the accounting generalist on this tomorrow. And I don't know that this is in a position to move to the Board of Finance without
Yeah,
that
yeah.
information.
Well, I think I think we could move it forward in principle. I don't want to hold it up. I mean, I think it's important to try to move forward. It's just, if I think we just have to put a caveat on it that we can approve the funds in principle, and we could maybe formulate a motion that says something to the effect of, we would approve up to 1% of the funds, $15,000 to be used for this business bonus incentive program to be administered by Sector, pending full review of the program by the Board of Selectmen. I mean, I think if that's the motion, it gives us the opportunity to undo the action. If something can't be done, I mean, and then it shows that we're trying to move it forward, because I don't want to hold it up any more than anyone else. I'm not trying to be difficult about it. I'm literally going back to probably 100 things that we've talked about these types of things in the past, and it's always become a problem when we're not doing. So I just want to make sure we're transparent about it. That's all. I just stated a motion. Does anybody want to make that motion?
So I'll move the motion you've already stated.
Give it a second.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? I would just say that I would not forward anything to the Board of Finance, Brett, about this, because we haven't seen anything. So you can present it. You're a member of the Board of Finance tomorrow night. I suppose. And
Yeah, so what we'll do, generally speaking, the Board of Selectmen forwards a memo to the Board of Finance for use of the funds. So I will do a summary of the program. And then Brett, if you can do more of a full presentation in the meeting itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be open to that. And Christine, I can come down in the morning to go over some of those basics.
yeah, I just don't want the Board of Finance, acting on anything that we haven't, that's not the appropriate course of action. So what I would say is, Christine, you put the memo together, I'll look at it. Board of Finance can take it at face value, and I think we'll be very clear about our position on it. And we are supportive. We all want to see this get done. It's certainly not an attempt to be difficult. It's just, we want to make sure our ducks are in a row. So.
No, I agree. And this is what we were looking to do. And like I said, Christine, will be interesting to see what you find out on the payout, as I did pose that question to Sector, and they thought it was best to pay direct. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, our plan was to get you the specifics before anything obviously rolled out. Once we knew the funds were there, and
Okay.
Sector worked on their end.
So can we vote?
Great. Oh, any further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 300. In your packet is, I will not be in attendance. I cannot make tomorrow night's Board of Finance meeting. I hadn't planned to come, and I have something else on my calendar. Christine can speak to it, and if either of you want to speak to it, that's fine. The 5-year capital plan is in your packet. So we have our capital project work group that has done really great work on our capital projects, and only many times to be disassembled in the budget process, which has been a little bit frustrating. But what we thought would be helpful is some of these items really kind of fall under the selectmen. And so we thought we'd take kind of an early look at it in preparation for our capital project work group meetings that will come up, and we'll then form our capital plan. So there's some items here that we should walk through and see, do we want to change them? Do we want to keep them? Do we want to eliminate them? Are there things not in here that we want to include? So we can just have some open discussion about it. You have in your possession the proposed capital on paper anyway, as far as what we think maybe should be in there. What other things are missing, or?
Well, just can we get explanation on the computer line, please?
Yep, so the computer line is submitted by the IT director. He was the first person to submit his capital plan, so I thank him for being timely. So my folder. So what I ask of everyone as we do the 5-year plan is I ask for a detailed listing of what they want in year 1, because that's going to be up for discussion in the actual budget process. So I want backup of everything they're planning to purchase that year. And then I ask for a general 5-year plan. So in his specific request for this year, it's $6,000 for computer replacements, and that's to replace 5 computers, $2,000 for server maintenance for the 2 main servers for the town and the Center for Emergency Services server, a new server for town hall, and then general repair, $4,000.
So Christine, we don't have that backup?
No.
Okay, so we just have 16,000, 17,000, 18,000, so on.
Yeah, I mean, and tonight we're not necessarily we're not being asked to forward an expense to anyone. It's just general discussion tonight. So we can certainly provide any of that backup. Well, we can provide his report if you want to, and then he can provide us even backup to that report if you wanted to see a quote on computers or whatever.
So my main question was, we haven't discussed this as a board in the time that I've been here. So I wanted to give you all the opportunity to look at the town building improvements line, the land acquisition fund, the flight and mapping. And if there's anything, as Mike said, anything new that we think needs to go into the 5-year plan, so that when the capital work group gets together, they have a full picture of you looking at you, the Board of Selectmen, as a quote unquote department. Just like the highway department submitted their information, IT submitted their information, fire company, and so on, to see if there's anything else that you feel is a priority that needs to be included, most importantly in the upcoming year, but also in the full 5-year plan. I did meet with the Hewitt Farm Committee to do their 5-year plan for the John Dean Gallup House. So I wanted you to feel included.
Thank you.
Do you have any other comments on any of the other lines?
I don't.
No.
Anything new that we feel needs to be added?
We have reduced over the last, I think now this will be the 3rd cycle of town land acquisition, and not funded that to the level which we had tried to fund it at. I wonder if we shouldn't try to recoup the funds that we didn't fund over the past 3 years and put it in at 30,000. I mean, with the first year we were here, we had the $10,000 line, I think. And that's really, we want that money there in case something does come along. I mean, it's a savings plan, basically. Any discussion on that?
Just going by past history. And when we're told to cut the budget, that's one of the first line items that we seem to go to, as we have over the last 3 years. So we can put a number in there if you'd like, Mike, to try to recoup that. But I guarantee you, the higher the number it is, the more chance it's going to be the first line item that's get zeroed in on to cut back.
Well, in this case, if it's higher, perhaps we can cut it back to $10,000 so we can get what we had tried to. So, I mean, I would suggest we put it in for 30. as we're putting the plan together.
Just for 22, 23, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And then get us back on pace for our 10,000 a year. The flight and mapping, I just think that number was kind of arbitrary to try to save up for flying the town. I think we should ask the assessor to do some more homework on that.
I think he had gotten an estimate of 65,000 and that was why we put it in at 13.
All right, so maybe he could refresh that just to make sure that's accurate and that we may want to just budget for that if it's how much it is, because that only helps us to have that data, to properly tax things, to properly have a good inventory of what is in town. I know that was something that our past planner was pretty vocal about, the fact that we really haven't done that and we need to. So I think we should come back and talk about that line again prior to the budget, prior to getting into budgeting. Other than that, I don't, well, actually, I don't think it falls under capital. So, but it is kind of a conversation about funds. So anything else on this? Anything else you guys want to see included?
I just need to think about it for a while.
Yeah, why don't we think about it?
Yeah.
Keep it on the agenda for next time. And is the recreation, like the fields, would that be under our purview, or is that going to be is Tommy going to put that through as something?
The Rec Commission discussed but decided to not move anything forward at this time for fields. They don't have information for it, but I did receive some requests from the school for field stuff.
Okay, so I would go back to, and there should be some collaboration there. If they're requesting stuff, the school is requesting stuff, there needs to be a meeting with rec. So if we're talking about doing some investment in fields, we should be looking at all our fields. So if a meeting needs to take place, why don't we get that meeting going? Now's the time.
Okay, do you recommend that meeting is with administration at the school or with the Board of Ed?
Why don't I reach out to the chair and I'll see how she wants to move forward. And then, of course, on our end, we can include our own folks. But I mean, now's the time. If we're going to put something forward, we should be talking about it now. Okay. Moving on then. All right, 298 Northwesterly Road. So we received, as we, I think, discussed at a prior meeting, we received no bids on the last go around to try to rent or sell the space. We have listed the property for sale. I believe that we are not going to get any interest in the property. I think that what's happened over the last year, unfortunately, is that there's been too much, I don't know. I think that the people, a lot of people in town were vocal about different issues with the property. And I think if you're a company or a school or interested, I don't think they're going to come to this building. So not to be a Debbie Downer about it, but I think we have to look at the reality of things. So there's a couple of things I wanted to, so on the positive side of things, I think we've got a great asset here. I really do. I felt like if there was interest in having other tenancy in the building, like maybe businesses that would have had an educational component, we had a bunch of those people that were willing, but I think that ship has sailed. I don't think there's enough interest from parties that would need to be on board with it to have it happen. So I think there's a couple of things we should talk about. And I welcome you guys' opinion on it. But one thought is we had a small conversation with a group of people from town about this grant that we didn't get, which included us doing some sort of a tear down of the middle school and having a park-like setting.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of interest in that. I think that the library is in the process of coming forward soon with some sort of renovation over there, which is basically on the same property. And so does it make sense for us to have a chat with them, which I am going to be meeting with them because I want to understand what they're planning. I don't know. And possibly go forward to the townspeople with some requests to, and we borrow funds to do, whether it's a partial tear down. My opinion is, there's a couple things that we could consider here. So I think there's a couple things. I'm just going to lay it out there. If we're going to do any sort of tear down, I feel like we should tear down at least a portion of the middle school and probably the 2-story wing. We don't have anybody that has any interest right now. And if we're going to look at pricing, why wouldn't we look at maybe having some more parking? We could look at the park thing over there. I say part of the middle school wing because I think one of the things that we could talk about, and this is Christine and I have talked about it, as well as the new planner actually brought it up. And we had talked about it in the past, was the idea of possibly moving recreation over to this building. And then that would leave the building over there for something else. It doesn't have deed restrictions, and we could possibly, working with the fire company for something acceptable. We are allowed to sublease over there. So we could do something else with that facility. So I guess I've also brought out there the idea of like town hall operations and stuff like that. That wasn't really, nobody kind of latched onto that. I thought it was a good idea, but so the ideas that haven't really been explored as we kind of go down the list of, okay, what else can we do here? In my mind, it's, do we look at tearing down both wings and just have just the pocket of building that we need? And maybe we pair that with some library funds so we can kind of get this whole campus done. We go borrow the money. We take a loan for $3 or $4 million. I'm throwing that number out there completely arbitrarily. I have no idea what this would cost, but we could borrow USDA money. It's not expensive money to borrow. And, we have a nice facility, grounds here that the town could enjoy. Or do we do that same plan, but also kind of bring recreation over here? Maybe there's a little upgrade included there. I just wanted to have a general discussion about what you guys thought, and do we have more community discussion about it? I mean, we're going to be going into the winter soon. So if there's any way to try to solve this problem before then, it'd be great. But
So I think you're on the right track, and I have some of those same ideas, Mike. I think we should have a conversation with the library, whether it starts with you, that's fine, and let them know that we're in a position. We've got a building, they have a building on their property that's going to deteriorate. It's costing the town a lot of money. We, as a town, do not want to just walk away from it. The Wheelers were nice enough to give us that land to put the buildings on back in 1950 and 1964. The only thing I disagree on is tearing down the 2-story wing, because we don't know what pandemics will be like in the future. And that's classroom space that's available to us without building. We've already seen where the schools had moved music over and moved chorus over last year, and we just don't know what the future is going to hold. So that's, to me, that 2-story wing is a valuable piece of property that possibly we could do something with the library's approval, with some relaxation of the deed restriction, to do something with business, to do something with maybe workforce development, but to keep the building as an insurance policy in case we ever need it for our students. Also, there's growth in the town. I've already seen it in the elementary school. In the high school, we have quite a few more students that have moved in. They added a 6th grade. It's the first time we've had 4 grades since my son Andrew was in school when he had 4. So they have over 60 children in the 6th grade. So we're already seeing more people moving in. We don't know what the pandemic is going to do. And we've got this asset, as you said, that's sitting there, and wouldn't be ashamed to tear it down, then have to go back to the town and say, hey, we need to put on an addition on a building that we're paying for over the next 30 years. So I agree with you on the greenery. If we could take down the middle school wing, I would take down the whole thing, and combine with the library to do a new design on parking so it benefits both the library and the new school/business wing. I think having town meetings in this room makes sense. Having voting in this room makes sense. Keeping the Board of Ed where they are and having the extra storage in this building that the school uses and pays for makes sense. But I could see a lot of, I don't know if DJ did any kind of mock-ups when we went for a proposal on that grant or not, but I could see, and a lot of people did speak in favor of having a green area where the middle school sits now, combined with the green area we have, and reconfigure the parking just so we could, it would benefit the library and this building. So possibly starting with the library to see what we could do, work as a partnership. They have plans town has plans, work together, and then maybe go to a community conversation and see what the town wants. What would they be in favor of? And we had some presentation that showed a depiction of the green area, depiction of what the building could look like, maybe. And I agree with you, whether it be $2 million, $3 million, whatever it happens to be, possibly put a new entrance on the two-story wing, so it has a separate entrance to the one that's takes you to the Board of Ed. These are all things that can be drawn up with conceptual drawings. And I think the town would, if they saw the finished product, I think they would buy into it. We know that a lot of people talk about the one-story wing and how it should have been demolished. So that would come off the table. We would have a green area like no other town around here has. I think the closest thing would be what they have up at NFA in Norwich. It could be a place to gather. We could still have graduation out there. We could have possibly a couple of small athletic fields. We already have a small baseball field and a basketball court. Possibly a soccer field could be put in. So I think it'd be a gathering place. I think there could be some ideas. I was thinking moving all the monuments to one spot in that circle where there's one monument and call that monument circle and have all our fallen soldiers and anybody who won memorials in that circle. It's still where we end our parade when we have a parade. So I think there's a lot of good opportunity for that space. I think it is an asset. And we've thought of it lately because it costs so much money to maintain as not an asset, but we have to start thinking of it in a positive way. And I think that that's something we could work on with the library together. And I think we could start moving on it fairly quickly.
Nina, do you have any comments on it?
Not really. No,
No.
I can't envision it
Okay.
at all, honestly.
So I think that's part of the problem is that people can't envision it. So are you opposed to the recreation idea?
Not at all.
Okay.
I know I'm not opposed to that.
Okay. Would you support using some funds to come up with some renderings? So in other words, if we're going to talk about this, I really think people need to see it. I think I tried to get I got some like free renderings when I was talking about the whole town hall idea, if you remember, and those are really basic. But at least they gave something for somebody to see. And, you know, most people, I don't think people could get behind the idea of moving town hall down the street. And that's okay. So there was and we had renderings. So that ship, I think, has to have sailed because we didn't get support on it. But maybe we could get some renderings that showed at least the landscape. You mentioned DJ. He was so kind enough, his company, to have volunteered and did do kind of an aerial, but it's really more of an architectural. So I don't think it wasn't really a rendering, but it was really helpful for the grant. Was so thankful that he, was willing to volunteer his company to do that. But I think we need some actual renderings. I think we need a number of renderings that would show the building, the facade, the movement of maybe recreation. I don't know.
I agree with you. If people can see the idea, it's better. But I think initially we have to come to an agreement with the library first, because these renderings don't matter if there's a deed restriction that we can't work.
Well, there's no restriction. So you said something that earlier about the two-story wing, about maybe there'd be a modification. Now, I believe that ship has sailed. I had 8 tenants that were willing to move in here that were happy to have the space, and they were willing to do an educational part, and that really wasn't received. I don't believe that there'll be any deed restriction change, and I don't think that we can ask of that. That conversation's already happened. So in my mind, it's working with the deed restriction that we already have. Now, I said work with the library because I think they're going to need money for what they need to do. And so if we can package it as one group, I mean, let's face it, like, they'll probably try to raise some money. They'll probably try to get some grant money, but they're probably going to ask the town for some money too. So why don't we be proactive and package it as one project? That's how come I was going to talk with the library leadership, was to understand what they're planning to do. And could we kind of somehow package this thing together so that people saw the benefit of the entire campus, I guess.
Would you be able to have a joint meeting with the library, or would it be just something you would meet with them?
You mean with the selectmen? Yes. Well, we could. Yeah, I mean, the library, I'm sure they'd be happy to meet with us. But I think they're also they have their own kind of mission and stuff, and they don't like to get in the weeds with any town, like, any controversy of any kind. And they shouldn't. They have a great mission. They do a great job there. And I'm not saying there's any controversy, but this building has gone with a lot of different discussions. So I wouldn't want to bring them, I wouldn't want to put them in a spot where they would be uncomfortable in any way. So what I thought I would do was have a meeting with their chair just to understand the plan and maybe kind of come back to the selectmen with a proposal. I mean, I think we could in short order, maybe get something that, it depends on what you want to do. So we could come back, we could come back at our next meeting and say, okay, we know how much this is going to cost. Maybe I can get a couple renderings that quick, maybe not. And we could put something on a town meeting and see what the people think. Or we could take a little more time, talk a little more about it, maybe have a community conversation with people. I kind of think we've had a lot of conversation about this, and people have been pretty clear that they wouldn't mind seeing a park like setting out here. The people that are vocal would be more than happy to see a tear down of the middle school wing. I don't think there'd be anybody complaining about that. I think we disagree a little bit on the two-story wing. I understand the value of the two-story wing possibly, but unless we're going to use it for something for the town, and we don't know, we're ultimately just keeping space for the sake of it. We could down the road, if we don't have a use for it in a year or two, we could do something there too. I mean, there's no harm in that. I just think if we're going to go for the money, maybe we just do it all at once, but I'm also not opposed to not doing that. So.
Do you know, Mike, what their plan is for their change that they're making now?
I don't. That's why I wanted to have a meeting with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's in their mind, I know, very strongly, to get going, and they really want to do that. So I'm just thinking, how much will they want to add on to it when they're trying so much to, change a lot in the life.
Yeah, and I don't see this as an ask for them. Actually, I see this as us helping them.
Yeah,
So like I know, I haven't had a conversation with them, but listen, if they're going to do major renovations and they're talking about it, they have some really, really great plans from what I understand. I haven't seen them. They're going to need money. So they're going to get it through either fundraising, grants, or asking the town of North Stonington in the budget process for money. And they certainly deserve it. I mean, they provide so much to the town. So if there's a way for us to package it together, it's not an ask to them. It's actually an offer to them, possibly. But I don't know. So
yeah.
I don't want to do anything that you guys don't want to see done, but I guess.
So why don't you start with that meeting with Kate, get back to us, let us know how that went,
Okay.
and we'll go figure the next step after that.
Right. That would be helpful.
Yeah. All right. Good. I think we all feel this kind of the same way on it, as far as trying to get something done here. So I'll do that. I'll report back. I'll report back on the
Okay.
298 Northwesterly Road update at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Number 10, Selectmen's expenses. I do not have anything to report on that. Tax refunds, we do have a couple, I think.
Yeah, one, I think.
We have
Isn't
one?
it just one?
We have one.
Yeah, it's one. It's one.
You're gonna motion that? You're gonna motion that?
Yep. Motion for Walter A. Primrose Senior to, what is it? What are we doing here?
294.21 is the amount.
294.21.
So there's a motion to approve the tax refund as presented.
I second that motion.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
There's some minutes.
Okay, so I'll be glad to do this. We have 3 sets of minutes. The first one is going to be from Board of Selectmen special meeting, August 3rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. As presented by Bailey. A motion that we approve it.
Okay.
So that's a motion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Okay, aye. Second.
Need a seconds?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a little discussion on number 5.
Mhm.
So in speaking with the pension plan that night, and this goes back to August 3rd, you were going to get, it's not changing the minutes, but you were going to get it back to us on that. And we have not heard back on that yet.
You're right. I haven't received anything back from those folks yet. We did request something, so we will get back to you on it. I just haven't received an update yet from them.
Oh,
Okay,
I
no other
see what you're
discussion.
saying. Yeah, I see which one it is.
Yep.
Yes,
As soon as I have something, it'll be on the agenda
okay.
with it. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion to approve the Board of Selectmen special meeting minutes from August 10th, 2021, as submitted by Bailey Talbot.
I'll second.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And last but not least, I make a motion that we approve the Board of Selectmen minutes from August 10th. And those were also submitted by Bailey Talbot.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We would have public comments on agenda items now. Any public comments on agenda items? Again, the Board of Selectmen respectful request that public comments do not exceed 2 minutes per person in respect for everyone's time. Is there any public comments from the Zoom?
Joe Gross, you have your hand up. Is that from prior, or do you have a public comment on an agenda item?
You hearing me?
Yes, go ahead, Joe.
Mike, I thank you for answering my question regarding the traffic commission and that. It made sense to me. I want to express my very sincere concerns with the village. The village is not just the village people. When it comes down to the funding, it's a town responsibility. I support them. And I look forward to their support whenever I have something too. The immediate thing I think for helping them people in there, and it's no cost to us. You mentioned it again tonight, lower the speed limit. You got the resident troopers, you can buy a sign, I don't know for what the heck it is, put that speed limit down to 15 miles an hour like the troop commander told us 3-4 years ago. And when he gives a ticket for 35 miles over the speed limit, people start to look at it. He believed that was the way to do it. For an immediate response to help them people in the village, I say drop the speed limit and leave our resident troopers do something. This 298 building, it brings up a very, very, very bad subject with me. I already committed $1 million for the demo. February 8, 2018, the vote was 1,352 to 611 to demo. I don't think you have any problem with the townspeople demoing that wing. And the park that goes in there and that. I believe that's a great thing to do. I'm glad to see we're on the side. The problem I got now is when I put my money out in that, where are we going to collect the other $1 million from again? And that committee that was there made a bad mistake whenever we had them PCPs and that come up in the elementary school. I know what the intentions were, but we should have come back to the town at that time to get the additional funds that we needed. I think we got to continue on with that. And Mike, I have more into that, but I'm not going to say too much more into that. Oh, the other thing I have on that, I was on my phone the other night and Facebook. I see Facebook has more comments on that 298 building than we talk in our meetings here. How the heck do we ever get into Facebook with our 298 thing in there? I just saw such a big thing on it that I couldn't believe it. But I know we're in Facebook now anyway. But don't come back to me on my figures with the 298 building, Mike, because I believe we won't agree. But maybe you can tell me, how did we get into Facebook with our problem there? That's all I got for now. Thank you, guys.
I don't know anything about Facebook. Pretty much I'm not on there, so I have a page, but I don't go on any pages on there. I don't know, Joe.
It's
Can't
in
win
there,
on
Mike.
I don't know. I don't know, Joe.
Oh,
That's where all
okay.
the world's problems are solved. Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Brian, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. We already gave you the money to take that building down. It wasn't used for that. So now we're gonna be taxed again. And then you're talking about, I heard you mention something about athletic fields. And I'm not sure, but it seems to me that the town owned the building, but I don't think they own the land under it. I believe the library is in control of that, so it's whatever the library decides. But I certainly don't want to put athletic fields over there because that's why we wanted to put them on the same side as the school up by the firehouse and all. So why would we want to kind of cut our throat? And the whole plan was to put all the schools and everybody on the other side of Route 2. Now you want to bring them back over again. Plus that, and then we'd have to maintain fields on this side of Route 2, which the other side, they're still asking for money for. So anyways, I'm a little upset about the whole deal there. We should have took that building down when we had the money. And it should have been, just like Joe said, it should have been brought back to the town. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
I see no other hands.
Well, I would like to thank everyone for attending tonight's meeting. It was great discussion and appreciate the board. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.